What up guys, today I'm going to be talking about is power scaling cringe. Now the reason why I want to talk about this video is there was this one channel that dropped out a video talking about power scaling being cringe, and then Surf Bones with another YouTuber basically had a whole live stream over 2 hours long, basically reacting to that video and then talking about it and making their own counterpoints against that video itself, where the video was basically saying power scaling in general is cringe, and especially the fan bases and these channels that do a lot of power scaling, and basically it was kind of making fun of power scalers in general. And Surf Bones didn't like that. The other YouTuber, I forgot what his name was, also really didn't like that, and they were kind of going back and forth, and they had their own arguments, which I will go in depth in that, what they said in that video too, because there's quite a bit of stuff that they said. And in one particular argument that Surf Bones made in the beginning of the video, which was basically the horcrux of the entire video itself and his argument against the guy's video itself. So I saw that video when it came out. I saw the thumbnail at least. I didn't check out the video itself until Surfbone made a video about it, and Surfbone actually made a video like I think 11 days ago, so I only checked it out yesterday, and that's why I'm making the video today. I also saw CJ, who is subscribed to this channel, so shout out to him. He was on Surfbone's video, basically agreeing with the original video, talking about power scaling being cringe, and basically attacking Surfbone, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, I think a lot of people, when it comes to anime fans or just fans of fictional characters and these powerful characters, a lot of them have kind of agree in a general consensus that power scalers are kind of annoying and kind of cringe and kind of obnoxious and stuff. So there's quite a bit of people even in these fandoms of like geek culture that don't like power scalers, because there's a lot of people who watch anime or Dragon Ball or read comics and stuff like that, and they do like the power stuff, but they mainly focus on the character development, the world building, the writing, and all this other stuff. And that's their main focus. And power scaling might be something they care about a little bit, but it doesn't really matter to them too much. Whereas channels like Surf Bones and my channel too, to a certain extent, we do care quite a bit about the power scaling. Though on this channel, I have more videos than just power scaling videos. I have videos talking reviewing different shows and stuff, talking about characters, talking about story writing, plot, talking about analyzing characters and stuff like that. So I have other things I talk about, but the main thing I do talk about is power scaling on this channel. So I do consider myself a power scaler, so this does have something to do with me. Now, do I agree with Surf Bones, especially in that video? That video as a whole, I do not agree with him, and I do not agree with his friend that he had on there. But do I agree with the original video talking about is power scaling cringe? I will say yes to a certain extent, but I also kind of disagree with that guy, because I do think that he, not too much, because there was another channel that I saw that also did this, but he was way more aggressive than that guy, and I kind of get where they're coming from, both of them. But I do think that I disagree with them to a certain extent. I don't fully agree with them 100%. So yeah, I do agree that power scaling is cringe. I 100% agree that. Even as a power scaler myself, who loves doing it, and that's my channel, a lot of my videos are about power scaling. Not like other channels where like Death Battle, where they basically are pitting up two characters versus each other and then analyzing, saying who would win. I usually, when I do these videos, I just talk about those characters specifically. I just do videos like on how strong is this character. So I just specifically talk about that character or that universe and what it what those characters are capable of. The only times I talk about these versus battles is when I have those reaction videos where I'm reacting to somebody, and usually those are suggestions that are given to me. So I check out these channels that do that, and I just give my 2 cents on the the arguments that they're making and the feats that they're using, and then also I make my own picks, which I don't think that's too big of a problem, because it's not like I'm going out of my way saying no this 100%. I'm just making my own picks, and I've admitted on my channel too that sometimes I made picks, like with the Thor versus Vegeta video. I was more aligned with Vegeta, but I admitted that, hey, I don't know enough about Thor to say 100% definitively, so I'm not going to argue saying Vegeta completely dominates him. But I like, even though I basically chose the side there, I wasn't super adamant about it and like fighting people over there, though I did have quite a bit of people disagreeing with me, so I did make some response videos, and that was only because they would keep on attacking me and saying you're dumb, you don't know this and that, and I was just like, dude, here's the thing, I never said that I know everything. I'm just giving my opinion, and you guys got mad, so that's why I responded. But like I said, is power scaling cringy? Yes, but to a certain extent, because there's other channels that make it sound like power scaling in general is just cringy and stupid, and these channels are just full of man babies and nerds and losers. And I do agree, like I said, to a certain extent, when some power scaling channels and people can't take it too far. They can get very personal. They can insult people, personally. They can get aggressive. They can even sometimes attack people in real life, which I always think that's crazy. But they can take it very seriously, and sometimes I take it seriously. But usually, whenever I'm arguing about anything, I can be very, aggressive about it verbally. But that's just how I speak. I'm not really actually mad. I just normally talk in a more aggressive manner. Some people from different parts of, the world, or especially in America, like if you go to like the East Coast, or because I came from Chicago, so in Chicago a lot of people there were more aggressive with how they responded, especially when it came to arguing. And as men, let's be honest, as men we roast the shit out of our friends and we're aggressive about it, but we still don't hate our friends. It's just how us guys communicate. So it's just natural. That's just how I normally communicate. And I've argued like this when it comes to politics, science, just writing in general, and all these other stuff. So it's not like it's only when it comes to power scaling I get this aggressive or yell. So it's not something new, but yeah, like I said, it's fine to a certain extent. I do get that, but like I said, Surf Bones and people like him, the other power scalers like that, I do think these guys do take it a little too far sometimes, and they are getting a little too offended by saying, how could you say power scaling is cringy? And it is like, it's fine to say that. That doesn't mean you hate power scaling in general, because I like power scaling, but I can admit that it can be cringy sometimes. It doesn't mean that it's bad and you shouldn't do it. It just means that you should probably control yourself a little bit more and not take it too seriously. That's it. But like I said, also these channels that make these videos on it, I do think they get a little too insulting themselves, because they're basically attacking people, because there's a lot of people in the power scaling community that are chill and that are just making these simple videos. So I will admit some people can go far, like Seth the Programmer. He was one of those people that took it too far, and I get that. But then there's people like Swag Kage or Chuck who do these videos too, but they're not really assholes. Even people that they disagreed with, they've been friends with in real life at least. So even if you disagree with somebody, that doesn't mean you hate them or you're just gonna be an asshole, unless you're like I said, somebody like Seth himself. Now, Surfbones and his video, his argument against that guy's video was, power scaling is not cringe. The only reason you're saying this is because you're not good at power scaling. And then he was making up this whole scenario that this guy probably, tried to power scale at one point, but was so bad at it and didn't understand how to power scale properly, to the point where instead of just accepting the fact that he doesn't know what he's talking about and trying to learn from others, that he turned that into, anger and hatred towards the power scaling community itself and just power scaling in general, and became bitter about it. And that was basically his whole argument against the video. The original guy's video saying that these power scalers are arguing about pointless things that don't really matter. What really matters is the writing and the story. It doesn't matter on how powerful these characters are. And the story writers, the authors and these editors don't really care about the power scaling. They just care about writing cool writing good stories, writing cool fun action scenes, and just having a big spectacle of a fight, which I do somewhat agree with. And Surfbones made a counter argument to this, saying no, that's not the case. They wouldn't have these editors that basically check the writing of these stories and say, hey, this doesn't go through because it doesn't make any logical sense. They do have editors that check out the continuity of, it gets convoluted, but it's mainly talking about the story writing than the power scaling. But the power scaling they do also somewhat cover. But Surfbone's argument with that argument or topic was, they do care about it because they do check it. And he was using the whole death of Superman, how they created Doomsday because they couldn't just use Darkseid since he's beaten him before and it wouldn't make any sense. So it would be better to write a new character that can beat him. And I do agree with him and his friend on that channel, where on that video, where they stated that the writers do care. and the other guy was saying that they don't care at all. I think they're somewhere in between the middle. I do think these writers, when they write these characters and these forms of superpowered fiction, they do take into consideration these characters' powers and what they're capable of. But I don't think they take it to the extent that we, as power scalers or debaters, take it to. I do think we take it to the highest degree, and I have made videos about this, talking about how these writers don't really care that much about the power scaling as much as we do. Now, I'm not saying that they don't care about power scaling at all. That isn't true. I don't agree with the original video about that argument, but I also don't agree with Serpone because he's saying they completely do. No, they somewhat do. They only really care about it sometimes if it's a little too much and it breaks the immersion of the story itself, because it's just logical. When you're watching something, you have to believe it. Even if it is fictional and it is going to be over the top, there has to be some believability for us as fans to stay engaged, because if it's too over the top and ridiculous, then it wouldn't really matter to us and we would just be like, whatever, it's just goofy, and we wouldn't take it as serious. And they want us to be invested in the story and the writing itself. Mainly that would be in the case of consistency of writing, so they would try to avoid plot holes, because if there's more plot holes, then it just makes the story fall apart more so than the power scaling, right? But the whole argument that he was making about the guy just being jealous because he wasn't good at power scaling is the biggest load of cope I've ever seen. It's so ridiculous. I'm like, are you serious, dude? You're saying that the only reason that he does not like power scaling and power scalers is because, or calling them cringe, is because he isn't good at it, so he's just jealous and he's mad. That sounds like straight up cope. Let's be honest. You're making it sound like somebody can't honestly just feel like something is cringy. He's just jealous. That's why he feels this way. He just can't honestly or seriously feel that power scaling in general is just cringy. And here's a little experiment I'll give you guys. If you guys don't think power scaling can be cringy, let's say you're in a public setting. Let's say you're at a school or you're at work or something, and you're talking to somebody or a group of people about who'd win in a fight, and you guys are going back and forth. Let's say you're doing it in public and there's people around. Would you feel somewhat embarrassed talking about these topics in public and around other people, especially regular people, or would you not? Because if I'm being honest, even though I do talk about this quite a bit on my channel, when I'm in real life, I try not to talk about, power scaling as much as possible. I do talk about anime and stuff, but even then, I try not to be, I don't like to be overly public about it in front of everybody, saying, oh yeah, this and that, talking back and forth about anime. But especially when it comes to that, if I ever talk about power scaling with somebody else, I usually kind of look over my shoulder to see if there's anybody else hearing, because it can be, a little bit embarrassing, because it is a little bit silly, it is a little childish, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it, like I said, unless you take it to the extremes, which that doesn't mean just because you talk about it that you're taking it too seriously. It's like when people would say, if you watch anime and also read the manga, then that makes you a weeb. It's like, no, it does not. What makes you a weeb is basically dressing up as these characters, start acting like them, and trying to take anime seriously like it's in real life, or trying to become like, say you're Japanese and trying to learn, or speak Japanese because you watch anime. That is being a weeb. That is the extremity of being an anime fan. So you can watch a ton of animes and read a ton of manga and even have some memorabilia and not be a weeb. A weeb is to the extreme. And the same thing with this when it comes to being on the cringe side. I think that as long as you're just reasonable about it, it's not too cringy. It can be cringy still to a certain extent, but if you overdo it like a weeb does, then yes, it can become cringy. But like I said, Serpone's argument is so dumb. It sounds really like Cope, like, oh, no, it's not lame. You just don't understand it, and you're just mad that you can't get it right, and that you suck at it. So you're just using this to, make an excuse for yourself. And it's like, dude, that's Cope. You can't even fathom that somebody might just think something like this is kind of lame. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, anything can be considered lame, even topics about, people who debate about politics, right? Some people find political debates pretty interesting. Other people can find it annoying or cringy. You see a lot of people on the internet, argue about religion, or argue about they don't believe in religion or whatever. And even though that's more real life stuff, it can be also cringy. So in the end of the day, anything can be cringy. Anything you like, whether it's sports, music, shows, movies, writing, science, anything can be considered cringy by anybody, especially if you take it too seriously and get into fights over it. So yeah, that can work with anything. But when it comes to something like this, where it's more, not real stuff and it's just more fictional, it can be a little bit even more goofy in that sense. So I think that argument was dumb. I do think it's fine to think it's cringy. I think it's okay. The only thing I don't like is when you're insulting people and saying they're nerds or virgins or losers and stuff like that. I think that's going a little too far. But if you think it's cringy, go ahead. I don't have a problem with that. Even as a power scaler, if you think my videos are cringy, that's fine. But just don't be a dick about it and attack people saying you're a fucking loser, you need to grow the hell up and stuff. I think then you're being an asshole. But as long as you just think it's cringy, I think you have the right to your own opinion. You can feel however you want. And people like Surfbones making his video, it just makes him sound salty and like he can't accept the fact that some people might find cringe. It's fine. That's the thing about people that we all need to understand is that no matter what we do, whatever we like, even if it's the most coolest thing or the most adult thing, it can be considered cringy no matter what. Everything we do in life, because some people want to hide the fact that they have any form of cringe, that they've never been cringy in their entire life. It's like we all have been cringy at one point or another. Sometimes we have in a conversation where we're a little bit awkward, or we said something dumb, or we did something dumb. Especially when you make countless videos on YouTube, a lot of YouTubers end up making themselves look like fools or doing stuff that makes them look dumb. So you're not gonna be able to avoid being cringy completely, though there are people that are just 100% most of the time cringy. So as long as you're not over the top or always like that, it's fine. But to pretend that you're never cringy or whatever you like is cringy is kind of dumb. And yes, I know I've said that word like countless times in this video, but I thought that argument was dumb. So let's talk about a couple of the other arguments that Surfbones made in his video also. He stated that he was attacking him saying, oh look, see how much of a noob he is? He's using versus wiki and then using death battle. And my argument to that was, once again, you're just proving his point. The point isn't, oh, I know what I'm talking about in power scaling, you guys are idiots and this and that. He's saying that in general is just dumb and is pointless. And you're arguing about the power scaling and saying, you don't understand it. It's like, that's not the point. He doesn't care. He's saying people who are, who invest way too much into it or are like have problems or lame or whatever. You clowning on him because of his lack of knowledge when it comes to it does not help out your case. It just makes you look dumber. They're like, oh yeah, whoever used that is a fucking loser and stupid like that. I'm like, you are just, and also if you're gonna cry about him being insulting to power scalers, you're also insulting people who are not good at power scaling or who don't care about it enough. Like you sound like a hypocrite right now. So I just felt like that was dumb. It's like you're attacking him because he doesn't know that much about power scaling when he admits that he doesn't even care about it. It's the dumbest shit ever. It's like insulting somebody's knowledge of religion when they're like, I'm an atheist and I don't care about religion. And you're like, well, you're going to go to hell. It's like, they don't even believe in it. Why the fuck are you going to tell them that? You're just wasting your breath. You're just acting like a dumbass now. So when I saw that, I just thought it was completely stupid that's what he was going to use in his argument. Then he was talking about death of the author and author intent, and I was like, that doesn't have anything to do with this either. Once again, this doesn't refute the point that he's making that is cringy. All that does is argue more in the sense of power scaling. But there was a bit of argument that I think he had some fair ground in, where the guy stated that power scaling is pointless because the writers themselves don't even focus on that. The whole point of writing a story or these fictional characters or like shonen battle anime or comic books is just to have big themes and have stories and world building and all this other stuff and just have cool scenes and stuff. And like I said, I do agree with that, but to a certain extent. Because Surfbone's argument against this was they do care about it. There's a lot of times they have editors where they check it, but also the editors, most of the stuff, because he was using the argument from the Cell Saga where the editor didn't like a lot of Toriyama's decisions. And I talked about this before, why the Cell Saga kind of sucks, where I felt like the direction was kind of aimless. There was a lot of stuff that they just added in. First, they had Android 19 and 20, then they changed them for Android 17 and 18, and then they changed them out for Cell. Then Cell had all these other transformations, and then we got to the final conclusion, and then he went down and then came back, whatever, you know? So they had all that, and his argument was like, see, the editor checked out, and he was against some of the choices that Toriyama made, so that means that they do care about power scaling. But I was like, that had nothing to do with power scaling. That had to do with writing in general. He said that the designs of the characters looked dumb or the writing just didn't sound cool. It had nothing to do with power scaling, and it had to do with writing in general. So I felt like he missed the mark in that argument. But the Doomsday thing, I think, was a fair argument to make. And like I said, I agree halfway with this, and I talked about this before, that these writers, their main focus is the story and moving the plot, and that's the reason why we have, plot conveniences and stuff like that, because the whole point of these writers is just to write, fun story or to sell merchandise, like Dragon Ball. They have all these transformations, all this stuff. I think sometimes people think it's also about the story. I think it's more about selling merch and stuff, and just, making money, or sometimes, trying to, like for Marvel and DC, trying to pass on a political message. Because modern day comic books, they have a lot of political messaging in it, and that's more of their main focus than actual story writing. So even that isn't true, that the story writing is the most important thing. Sometimes it's to push an agenda, other times it's to make a profit, like in modern day Dragon Ball, where most of these transformations and these new characters is so they can sell, toys or shirts and merchandise, and new DLC characters for these Dragon Ball video games. So I think the most important thing is either these messages, at least in the Western media, and in the Eastern media, it's more about marketing and merchandise, and especially toy sales is their main focus, and then everything else is falls to the wayside, especially power scaling. But in my other videos, I stated in those ones, I was like, you know what? These guys don't care about it so much, so why do we? It's fine to talk about it, but to get super heated and say, no, this is 100%, it's like, well, there's inconsistencies in any form of media and writing, whether it's just story or power scaling, so there's no point to say, well, this character is 100% this and that. It's like, well, there's inconsistencies everywhere. So there's my thing on that. And then he also made another argument saying that there's no such thing as really outliers or bad writing. It's just that you misinterpreted the writing when it comes to power scaling, and that was Serpamon's argument, which I think is just dumb. It has nothing to do with the power scaling being cringe thingy, which he went on a tangent on that. I don't know what that had to do with that, but I'm going to talk about that too. He said that. I do not agree with that statement at all whatsoever. I think that is a pretty stupid and asinine statement to make, that a writer can never have bad or inconsistent writing. It's just that us as fans misinterpret it. It's like, are you kidding me? There are clear-cut instances in writing where the writer stated, this ability can only do this and has this limitations. And then later on, they have the same ability, not being confined to those limitations or those the set rules they put into place, right? That is a form of bad writing and inconsistent writing, because they already put a rule and then they broke that rule. That would be considered inconsistency. So it's not on us as the fans, it's on the writers. And a lot of times these writers, they showcase feats where they do crazy things, and then other times they show feats that they're far less so. That is an outlier. For example, when it comes to Goku, he on planet Namek was able to go halfway across the planet within a second or less, right? But then you have Gohan going 1,000 miles, and he states it's going to take him 20 minutes. So it's like, why would it take Gohan 20 minutes to go, 1,000 miles when Goku was able to go halfway across an entire planet within a second? So even if you don't take into straight up mathematical formulas and power scaling in depth, just think about logically. It's like, well, if somebody can go halfway across the planet while they're far weaker than somebody that's way stronger takes 20 minutes to go only 1,000 miles, that doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, he's wrong in that regard, and it makes more sense now, because on his video on Goku, the one that I talked about where I forgot what it was called again, where he was basically talking about why Goku's not 5D, and that the fan base over exaggerates that, and one of the arguments he was stating was that the other world is not a timeless dimension. It is bound by time itself, and he stated that there's a lot of instances where there's one-to-one real time, and if you are saying that, oh no, it is a timeless dimension, then you're saying that the writing is bad, and that's not, and that's shitting on the series. And my argument to that was, sometimes the writers just don't really think that in depth about this stuff, and that's one of the other reasons why I feel like power scaling isn't that important to take it that seriously, because even the writers, they're not scientists, they're not like experts on these things. They write these concepts that are very in-depth in science, but they really don't follow those rules to a T either, because it's fiction and it doesn't matter. So I felt like his argument there was kind of dumb, and like him stating that no. You're, by you saying that, this means that you're saying that the writing is inconsistent. Yeah, that can be bad. That doesn't mean you hate the show. It's okay to call out bad writing. That doesn't mean you hate the series or whatever. That just means that some parts don't make much sense. And my argument to that was when Piccolo in the hyperbolic time chamber, he was able to talk to Goten and Trunks in one-to-one real time, and the time dilation is extremely different because 1 year passes in 1 day in the real world. Well, 1 year passes in the hyperbolic time chamber, and 1 day only passes in the real world. So technically, that didn't make any sense. So yeah, there's an inconsistency right there. So yeah, I disagree with him on that. Now, talking about another topic that I want to talk about when it comes to this is, some people argue that because some people are saying, well, it's kind of I forgot what it was, but some people were saying debates about real topics like who would win in not who would win in a fight, but like political debates, right? They stated that those are also kind of cringe, and some people's argument was, well, that's real life, right? Whereas this is fiction, so that actually matters. This doesn't, right? But it's kind of double-edged sword when it comes to that too, because think of it this way. Yes, you can make the argument that debating and arguing about fictional characters winning, who would win in a fight between two fictional characters, doesn't matter because it doesn't have any significance in the real world, whereas political debates do. But the problem with that is, and the flip side of that argument that you can make is, well, at least when it comes to fictional characters, you can just say, well, this is fiction, so we don't. It's fine. It's not that serious. But when it comes to politics, it is serious, since it is real world stuff, and it can be, a lot of people can attack each other personally. There's a lot of arguing and fighting between conservatives and Democrats. There's a lot of arguing between YouTubers and stuff, and people can get really personal and insulting about it. So that's even more serious. So yes, it is real world stuff, so you can say it matters more, but also, since it is real world stuff, you're not attacking just somebody's argument. You're attacking their belief. You're attacking their their viewpoint, their moral code, and how they believe. Because a lot of people attach their own beliefs to politics because it's embedded in their life and who they are, right? So that is even more insulting to attack somebody in that front, because now you're attacking who they are as an individual and how they live, and that can be even more toxic. So yes, you can make the argument that that's real world stuff. It matters, right? But it could also be worse, because at least in the other one, if somebody insults me when it comes to that, as long as they're not insulting my intelligence, I could be like, okay, whatever. You don't believe Goku can win? Let's just agree to disagree. But when it comes to politics and somebody says my political belief is wrong and what I believe in, what I morally think is right is wrong, then that is a personal thing, and that's not something you can let go of so easily. If somebody says that Goku's not powerful and Superman can beat him, I can say, whatever, go ahead. But if you're arguing saying that I'm a fucking asshole because I believe this politically, and that people like me are horrible pieces of shit for believing in this, that is more serious. So that can be more, that could be more fucked up in that regard. So you can let go at least of the fictional stuff, but when it's real personal stuff, you're getting really personal. That's why a lot of political debates can be very toxic and very, it could just be really attacking people personally, or talking about people's nationalities, or talking about people's religious beliefs or non-religious beliefs, or people's genders, because there's a whole gender war between men and women. So those debates, those are real debates, but those get very personal, and it causes more real divide. So it's far more detrimental in society to have those debates than a fictional one, because at least in a fictional one, it doesn't really hurt anybody unless you really take it seriously. But those ones, it does hurt people. You're basically attacking real people, and you're attacking them personally. So it's worse in that regard. So you can say, yeah, it's real world stuff, but then you're also attacking somebody personally, and you'll take more offense to that. So that's also a bad thing on that front. Also, let's just talk about politics in general. The whole debates between these politics, you can say, yeah, this is the real world, and that is true, but it also doesn't hold any weight in the real world either. Because a lot of these people that argue about politics, especially on YouTube, like these debate bros and stuff like that, they're not really making a change in the world. They're not making a change when it comes to the policies. They're not making a change when it comes to the government structure itself. They're not making a change to the country. The most they can do is make a change to the audience that they're, reaching out to. But even then, those people don't really, they don't really affect them that much. All they're doing is just, because usually when you have these people that argue about politics, they just have their own echo chamber, so those people already agreed with him anyway. They're not really swaying people's opinions, they're just attacking other people's beliefs. Because a lot of these political debates that a lot of people have also talked about being cringy, because they're no longer debates, they're just people attacking people. And somebody like Ben Shapiro stated that the whole point of debating is not to actually have a real discussion and change people's minds, but to attack the other side and, showcase that yours is better. So even in that case, they're not really trying to make a change in the world or make the world a better place. They're just trying to, inflate their own ego, and that doesn't really fix the world. So if you look at these political debates, even though they're arguing about real world stuff, they don't really have an effect in real world. Most of these people like Hassan Piker or H3H3 or Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh or Brett Cooper or whatever, all these other people that talk about politics and stuff like that, they don't make any changes either, unless they have some political affiliations where they can do something or they have some connections to policies. The only people that really have anything when it comes to political debate that would matter is actual politicians. So like when you see like Trump versus Joe Biden, or against Hillary and stuff like that. But even then, that gets childish too. You can consider that immature and cringy because you have them name calling each other, and this is supposed to be more, this is supposed to be more serious. It should be more serious than, debates between fictional characters. These are real topics and real world problems, right? But then they're acting like fucking like immature ass children on the internet, calling people like Sleepy Joe and Donald and all this other fucking shit. So it's like, at the end of the day, even when you're arguing about real stuff, it gets cringy. You're telling me the whole debates that we saw, these political debates from these politicians, wasn't fucking stupid looking? And even, like I said, politicians, even though they have more sway, let's be honest, when we look at the Congress and stuff like that, the whole argument about politics is nothing ever changes. Society stays the same. The status quo always stays the same. Barely anything changes in the world. So even these real world topics like politics, which is very important and is embedded into society and culture itself, has no real effect. Whether you're just, some political speaker, like on YouTube, those guys don't really make a change in anything. They're just fucking retarded losers who bitch about, like, other people's beliefs and have this really retarded ass T mentality where they're like, you either have to be liberal or you either have to be conservative. But if you're a centrist, which that's what I am, politically speaking, then you're basically, you're just sitting on the fence and you're not choosing a side. So even those people act like fucking children. They're like, you have to choose our side or this side, or if you're not on my side, then you're against my side. It's like, dude, or I could just have multiple different opinions from different political spectrums, right? But apparently that's not allowed. So even in that regard, if you look at there, it's even more immature. And those guys are arguing about serious stuff. At least I can give some leeway to people being, being immature when it comes to arguing about fictional characters. When you're being immature arguing about real world shit, then it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we even having these debates if we're going to be just being dumbasses? And like I said, even if we don't consider the YouTubers and these, political speakers, and we talk about actual politicians, they don't make changes either. How many presidential elections have we had, or mayors and governors and stuff that we had for like arguing on Democrat or liberal? And how many of these people have actually changed the world and made, these policies have big changes? The whole joke about the Congress is nothing happens with Congress. All they do is argue and it goes nowhere. So even when it comes to real world debates, it doesn't really have any effect on the world. Even when you have some political power, you don't really do any political effect because the status quo always stays the same. So the whole point of my little rant right there is, even if you want to use real world stuff, nothing changes. Even let's go to talking about gender, because we have women being misandrous towards men, saying men are men are rapists, men hurt women, men need a men need a men need a what's the thing called, pay for dates, and then on top of it put more effort into courting women, this and that, and then you have guys stating that women are using men for food dates and all this other stuff. Even those arguments that you see with like Fresh and Fit or the whatever podcast, they don't make a change either. All they do is create a bigger divide between men and women to hate each other. And in the end of the day, arguments about something like that, were like arguing about intergender normative I guess politics or whatever. Even when you talk about stuff like men and women, it doesn't do anything for society except just make us argue more. So I think in the end of the day, arguing or debating about anything can be stupid, because even if it's real world or fictional, it doesn't matter. If you go into politics, nothing changes. It's just people yelling, saying the other side is bad guy, and then my side is the great one. You need to join my side or you're my fucking enemy. And then you have with men and women, saying men being basically sexist and saying women shouldn't work, women should basically submit to men, and men should dominate over them because we're superior to them. And then we have women saying misandrous ass shit and talking about how dehumanizing men, saying that they're rapists and they're murderers, and then also trying to make an excuse for, we can talk shit to men and treat them like dog shit, because at least when we do it, it doesn't really have any effect. But when they treat us like shit, it does have effect. It murders people like us. So then it's like, you're just making semantics to be an asshole on both sides too. So even when you argue about stuff like that, when it comes to gender and stuff like that, the world doesn't benefit from it. So these debates in general, I would say debating in general is actually pointless. Even people that talk about it say, yeah, this whole argument between men versus women is pointless. It doesn't go anywhere. So yeah, to insult, power scaling and saying, oh, this is dumb and childish, is like, debating in general can be very dumb and childish about anything. Even about science, and I do love science. Even those people who disagree with science, you're not going to really change their mind on it. You can give them the more scientifically analytical, data and arguments, and they will still disagree with you. So it doesn't matter. So no debate matters, no argument matters. None of these things matter. All that matters is, as long as you guys, whether you have a belief or whatever, that you stay true to it, and you're at least honest about what you believe in, and that you don't take everything too seriously, and you can at least be reasonable enough to look at the other person on the other side and say, hey, look, I might not agree with you on everything or on this and that, but I don't think we have to be enemies, and we can at least we can also acknowledge that we're human, and that we all have things we're going to disagree on, but we can at least respect each other, right? And I just want to close off this video by stating that Goku beats Superman, Goku's soul is all fiction, and nobody can beat Goku though.